Hi there, motorhome owners. Today on your 2017 Fleetwood Bounder, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's steering stabilizer. And this is what our stabilizer looks like when it's installed. It attaches to your axle on one side and to your tie rod here on the other side. It works with your steering system to act as a dampener. So if you were to hit any potholes or uneven terrain, it often causes your steering wheel to jerk or shoot to one side. This is going to help dampen and minimize that, so you're not having to work so hard when you hit those things. And it also helps keep your steering wheel centered in the middle, which takes off the effort that you have when going down the road on the highway. Instead of wandering so much, this is going to just help keep that steering wheel straight for you. Because we have our spring here, which wants to stay in its normal position. So if we turn our wheel this direction and it starts to collapse the spring and compress it, it wants to return to that position. So it's going to push back and return that steering wheel. You're not going to notice any extra effort when turning. You really don't feel it too much when it's in here, but you definitely feel it pushing the wheel back when you go to return back to straight. Same thing with the other direction. If we were to turn the wheel the other way, it would stretch and extend our spring and it wants to come back. Inside of our spring assembly, we've got a dampening shock, and that's mainly for those potholes and things we hit. That shock doesn't want to move very rapidly because it has a gas and fluid filled chamber that works on a restriction. So when we hit those, it tries to push it and the shock helps slow it down, minimizing how much you feel on the inside. So all in all, what this is going to do for you is it's going to reduce the amount of effort it takes when driving your motorhome. And on those larger motorhomes, as you know, they can be quite cumbersome to keep that thing in a straight path. And if you're going on a really long trip, it can be quite tiring. Adding this in here is going to minimize all that effort so you can go on those long trips and have some energy left over to unpack and enjoy spending time with your family. It's a pretty quick and easy installation to add one of these to your motorhome. So why don't you follow along with me? You get all the hardware and everything you need. So let's go ahead and get it installed. We'll begin our installation by removing the rear U-bolt on our front axle over on the passenger side. The nuts here, we're going to be sliding our bracket onto it. You want to have your vehicle parked on a level surface with the wheels straight. When doing a steering stabilizer install, it's going to ensure that we get it in the proper position. We are using our leveling jacks to lift ours up to give ourselves some more room to work and make things easier for you to see. You could easily do it on the ground without those. But if you do use your leveling jacks, there is going to be a point where you have to have it on the ground in order to properly install it. But these first steps you could do up in the air like we are here. If you do work with your leveling jacks raising the vehicle up, you want to make sure you have jack stands underneath the frame because you don't want to trust just your hydraulic jacks. So now we're going to remove these with a 1 1/8 inch socket. These are extremely tight and we are going to have to torque them down to their manufacturer specifications when we're done. So you do want to make sure you've got yourself a very large torque wrench that's going to be capable of doing so. Now that those nuts are removed, we can take our bracket here. The slotted hole is going to go towards our passenger side on the outside. And we want this small hole here to be facing towards the rear and the center. So we're just going to slide this up over our U-bolt. And then we're just going to reinstall the nuts. We can then go back and tighten these down. I like to tighten each one until they touch and then finish tightening so that way they tighten down evenly, kind of working my way back and forth. You also do want to just check the top of your spring here and make sure it stays in place. We've got Sumo springs installed on ours, so it's going to keep it from coming out. But when you take those nuts loose, it is possible it could get out of alignment, so just make sure you've got it up against that seat. Then we can go back and torque our hardware to the manufacturer's specifications. So now we can come to kind of towards the center here. This is our tie rod that's connecting our two steering knuckles together there. So we're going to take our U-bolts here and our bracket. And this bracket here is going to install on the bottom of our tie rod, just like that. We're going to take the U-bolts, drop those down on top until they slide through the holes in our bracket here. We can then place a washer on each end of our U-bolts and follow it up with a nylon locking nut. Now we need these to be fairly loose so we can adjust it. You can tighten it down some if you want right now, but just make sure that you can still pivot it and slide it down the shaft so we can get it lined up. So now we've got our bracket on here, we can slide it around and move it as we need to. So at this point we can go ahead and get our steering stabilizer and we can get it loosely put into place. But we don't want anything tightened down until we are sure that we've got our vehicle flat on the ground with our steering wheel straight. So we're going to loosely get that guy on now. So we can now take our steering stabilizer, and if you look at it here, one side looks kind of like a shock, and the other side, it does look like a shock too, but it's got a spring right up against the end there. This is the side that goes towards the center. The side here that looks more like just a shock is going to go onto this bracket here. So we're going to take our larger bolt that comes in our kit, have one washer on it, slide it through your stabilizer, place a washer on the other side, and then you can lift it up and start a nut on it. Now we're going to come here to the center, and we've gone ahead and slid this down. We're going to take our bolt, we're going to slide it through the bracket. We're going to place a washer on it. We can then slide our steering stabilizer onto that. Follow that up with another washer, and finally with a nut. Since we've got our leveling jacks giving us a little more room to work and things like that, we need to get it back down on the ground, because it's not going to be in the proper position until our suspension is fully loaded and we got the steering wheel straight. So we're going to go ahead and lower it back down now and get that steering wheel straight, and then we're going to head back under here to finish tightening it up. Now that we've got those snugged down, which we snugged down using a 19mm socket and wrench, we're now going to move on to our U-bolts, which is going to be a 15mm socket. Now we just need to make sure our steering stabilizer is level before we tighten it down. And then we can go back and torque our U-bolts to the specifications found in our instructions. And now with everything tightened and torqued down, we're ready to go for a test drive and make sure everything's working properly. What you want to look for is to verify that your steering wheel stays straight and you do drive in a straight line. If it wants to kind of drift off to the left or to the right, then our steering stabilizer is not in quite the right position. It's really easy to fix though. Just pull your vehicle into a straight line on nice level ground. You're going to loosen up the U-bolts here. Just kind of move it around a little bit and then just retighten them back down, because they will likely move to the left or to the right a little bit. Because if it's not in the perfect position here, our spring and our stabilizer here is going to either be pushing or pulling in one direction, and that's why you get that pull. So once you got it in that nice straight center like this, you should be going nice and straight, and you'll enjoy all the benefits you're going to get from your steering stabilizer. And that completes our installation of Roadmaster steering stabilizer on our 2017 Fleetwood Bounder.